Welcome to Experimarketing, the podcast where we innovate, create, and appreciate. Powered by Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson. Here's the host of Experimarketing, Chief Experimarketer, Colin Carasquillo.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Experimarketing, the podcast where we innovate, create, and appreciate. Just like Jim Mcarthy at Jim Mcarthy Voiceovers said, this is Experimarketing. He has a really deep voice that I'm not even going to try to emulate. But thank you, Jim, for that. And you can see at the bottom of the screen there, Jim Mcarthy Voiceovers, JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com. Without further ado, let's bring on my co-host here, Mr. Matt Wilson. Hello, Matt.
Hello, sir.
How are you?
Wonderful. Good to be here.
Yes, so this is our episode after the Halloween weekend, so I hope you're not in a diabetic coma or a candy coma.
I've just Kit Kat wrappers littering the floor under my desk here. It's terrible.
I thought I heard you crunching around a little bit as you got to your chair, and that's it. It's the wrappers explain it. So we are back with another episode of Experimarketing. This is Experimarketing episode 7. Down with QSP, you know me. Down with QSP. You know me.
I was afraid you were going to sing.
So that's a little take on a popular Naughty by Nature song. And a lot of you, and I know Matt included, are probably like, what the hell are QSPs? So with that, yeah, right? What the heck is a QSP? With that, today, we have a very special guest. His name's Naveen Nanja. He's the regional sales manager at Adpearance and Foureyes. I call him Naveen Nanja, the analytics ninja. And he's going to explain for us today what a QSP is and why dealers should be on the lookout for QSPs. So before we do that, there he is. Hey, Naveen, how are you?
Hey, guys. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Coming on the show. And I know, so you're on from Oregon. And obviously, all the way on the other side, Matt and I are in New Jersey and Connecticut. Matt's in Connecticut, but so it's a little early over there. So we appreciate you hopping on.
Of course.
And with that, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us about Adpearance and Foureyes. Go for it.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm with Adpearance and Foureyes. So Adpearance is a digital agency that's been around for about a decade at this point. We really specialize in the auto industry. We're in a bunch of different certified digital programs from FCA to Acura to Toyota. I think there's 7 in total. And Foureyes is a part of our business that actually came that's really focused on everything that happens after a lead is generated. So marketing attribution and sales enablement. So yeah, I mean, that's the short version, and we'll get into what a QSP is shortly.
So tell us about you, though. So as the regional sales manager, what are you in charge of? And then how long have you been with Adpearance? And you know, once again, why are you the analytics ninja?
I've been with Adpearance for about 2.5 years, but my background is I was a marketing and a computer science major in college. And I always kind of had the plan of getting into digital marketing and advertising. So I like to tell people I'm probably underqualified to write code, but overqualified for digital marketing, technically at least. So that's kind of my background. You know, I've learned a lot of here at Adpearance, and the Foureyes platform has really taught me a lot about not just the strategies with managing paid advertising for dealers, but also how to actually report on that and make business decisions based off of the metrics that you're tracking from your digital advertising.
Yeah, and I think that that's exceptionally important, especially, you know, in this day and age, in this COVID world that we're living in. And we know that dealers need to be a lot smarter with their advertising spend. They need to make informed decisions. I think a lot of what Adpearance and, you know, Foureyes, like you said, what happens after the lead actually does is utilize that data and that information. So, you know, that's why we wanted to have you on. One of the things that you had taught me, actually, which, you know, that's always great. I always say there's a brighter, redder, faster Ferrari. And I personally think that you are that guy when it comes to me as well. So with that, you taught me the acronym of QSP. So for the listeners out there who still don't know what QSP is, but they're still thinking like QSP, you know, down with QSP, you know what I mean? Tell us what a QSP is, please.
Sure. So QSP stands for Quality Sales Prospect. So in the world of Foureyes, that's an acronym that's really specific to Foureyes, but the simplest way to explain it is that not all prospects are created equal. Working in the auto industry, you're fully aware that not every prospect that you generate is going to be a sales prospect. Really, there's sales prospects, and then there's everybody else. So QSPs are essentially prospects that we qualify with Foureyes as having sales intent. And those prospects are more valuable to a dealer, obviously, because that's what they're interested in. They know they're going to generate parts and service prospects and leads. They know they're going to have people calling the dealership who maybe aren't ready to do business at all. They just have questions. So they're trying to hone in on the prospects and the leads you're generating and paying for that actually have sales intent, is why we kind of created that nomenclature of QSP. So that's the shorthand for saying, hey, this is a prospect that's showing sales intent.
So what is, or what are the portions of that sales intent that you guys are looking at?
So some of it is based on context. So obviously if somebody fills out a form on the website, the context of the form can tell you if it's a sales prospect. So if they fill out a price form, it's pretty clear that that's probably a sales prospect. The other things that Foureyes is doing too is we have a team of human analysts, and we also use AI basically to go through every single phone call, form fill, or chat from the website, and then analyze those transcripts. So if the AI doesn't catch it, then the human analyst will, right? And so it's usually pretty clear if you listen to a phone call whether or not that's somebody who's interested in purchasing a vehicle or if they're a non-sales prospect. So there's always the thing that I think that is the most difficult part of this is that it takes a lot of manpower to listen to every single phone call. And that's usually not something that's feasible for the normal headcount at a dealership. So trying to take that part of it out so that you can actually see, okay, of all of the leads that came through my website, not just the paid ones, but also organic and direct traffic, which one of those actually generated me the most sales prospects or QSPs as opposed to total prospects?
Mm-hmm. So when you look at that, right, so seeing what lead sources or, vendor partners of yours have actually created the most sales prospects, I mean, the next logical step for a dealer would say, okay, let me look at maybe or potentially reallocating some of the money from the sources that, aren't generating these QSPs and putting it to the sources that are. Would that be, the brief assumption?
Absolutely. A lot of people, I break it down this way. There's really only two problems you're trying to solve in digital advertising: lead volume and lead quality. Most metrics and KPIs that agencies are going to provide, or that digital advertising platforms and marketing attribution platforms are really geared towards volume. It's much harder to gauge quality, which is what the QSP is getting at, right? So I want to get you the quality prospects, and so that way, when you're looking at your advertising, like you said, you're looking at not just, hey, paid search generated me X amount of prospects, but it generated me X amount of sales prospects versus Facebook. And so then you can get a more apples to apples comparison because volume is not always equal quality.
Sure.
And so trying to cut through that noise in some way that's not just time on site or pages per session or VDP views is kind of the problem that we're trying to solve.
No, I like that a lot. And I think, just a general statement from someone on the dealer perspective, but even Matt as an individual, who's at an ad agency, in an ideal world, I think what we're all looking for, I don't need 10,000 leads that don't, these are all semantic numbers, right? So I don't need 10,000 leads that don't convert, right? But if I had 10 leads that I knew all 10 would sell, obviously we would want 10 leads that are all going to convert. So I think that's, the beauty of what Adpearance and Foureyes, what you guys are doing is because you're literally focusing on just that. And this is great for, other ad agencies, vendor partners of dealers to listen up to, or, listen to, and then for dealers to really even ask their vendor partners. And that's what this is about, is dealers, don't be afraid to ask your vendor partners and say, hey, so you got me X amount of, leads, but is there any way that we can connect those to sales? Is there any other metrics that you're looking at in terms of identifying these people as these quality sales prospects? And I think if we really did that and looked at it and boiled it down to its simplest form, that's going to help dealers out, in terms of actually getting a return on their advertising spend. So I mean, I think that's,
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's challenging because even I think most people agree that paid search is usually the best return on investment in terms of where you can put your digital advertising dollars as a dealer. But there are challenges with paid search. So, a lot of people are familiar with the Google micro moments concept of really bucketing the keywords that are most likely to turn into a lead. A lot of those are, brand plus dealership. So Dodge dealership, Dodge dealer, things like that. But the challenge there is that there's not a clear intent of whether that's a sales prospect or a non-sales prospect. So somebody who's looking for service is going to search for a dealership in the same way as someone who's looking to buy a vehicle. And so there's a lot more info and context that can be gleaned when you start to look at it, not just on a channel by channel basis, but for the clients of ours that work with us both on the Adpearance and the Foureyes side, we can offer a little more insight at a more granular level. So saying not just is paid search didn't just generate you this many QSPs, but these campaigns within paid search generated you X amount of QSPs. Then you start to really be able to boil it down to not just, I think the most rudimentary way of doing reporting is saying lead actions. So how many phone calls, how many forms, how many chats. One step further is to say how many unique prospects. And the last step is QSPs. So once you start to boil it down to what's your cost per lead action, cost per unique prospect, cost per QSP, then you really start to be able to get an apples to apples comparison that can go across channels and make your job as a digital marketer a lot easier when you're having to make decisions on, I have X amount of dollars. How do I generate the most sales prospects with this finite amount of money?
Yeah, I think that's very important. I mean, actually, when you look at it, because we as dealers, and I know the dealer community out there really focuses on some very high level things, impressions and cost per click, right? So for a dealer, when they say, oh yeah, I got over 100,000 impressions and my cost per click was $2.48, like I'm doing really great. Well, dealer, it's really time to wake up and say, everything that you had mentioned, that's the top of the funnel. And then really what happens is you look at cost per actions and then, or cost per lead, then cost per action. Then you end up looking at actual cost per quality sales prospect. And I think some of those numbers, if you really dug into it, might be alarming to some dealers because they would say, oh my goodness, like, this isn't working for me. And I need to absolutely reevaluate and see this as an opportunity for improvement with their marketing and so on and so forth. So I think that's very, very important. Especially when we're looking at the idea of a quality sales prospect and being as efficient as possible with our expenditures. So once they're identified, right, a QSP, what kind of reporting, should dealers be looking at, whether it's what Adpearance or Foureyes can provide, or just in general, whether they're on Google Analytics or something like that, or vendor partners, what should they be asking to see?
Yeah, I think that if you have a way of identifying QSPs, using that as kind of your North Star of just saying, well, we know that this is what we're after at the end of the day. So just, I think cost per QSP is a really good way of identifying the appropriate channels and campaigns that are working for you, so that if you can boil that down on a granular level where you have, a couple different, let's say Facebook campaigns, and you can actually figure out the cost per QSP for different campaigns to different audiences with different, basically you can A/B test, right? So that, I think, is, if you can get that data, that is the best way to use it. Use it similar to how you would use a conversion rate or a cost per lead type metric, just to actually quantify the value of the conversions that you're getting. I think, to your point, a lot of people put a lot of weight into impressions or clicks, click-through rate, search impression share. Those metrics are important. There's no doubt. But they don't highlight the underlying thing, which is you can't sell cars to traffic to your website. You got to sell cars to people, and you need them to pick up the phone and fill out forms and, start a chat with your team. So those should be the things that you're tracking and optimizing against. Because, I think ultimately, too many dealers view advertising as maybe a commodity where they see it as it's a switch, and do I have it switched on or do I have it switched off? And I think that's a trap that you fall into, where you think that every spend is going to be equal, because, you know, I'll sometimes ask dealers like, hey, are you utilizing Facebook? And they'll say, yeah, I got somebody doing that. I'm like, great. And then you ask one more follow-up question, you realize that that's about the extent of their tracking of it's on, it's working.
I have it.
If you ask them, okay, like, do you have a general ballpark on like what your conversion rate is there? Do you generally, like, what are the metrics that you look at monthly when you talk to your provider? A lot of times they're not really like clued in there. And part of it is because a lot of times it's not their job. You know, they might be a general sales manager or a GM who has way too much on their plate to really be getting in the weeds. But that's where you really need to rely on that vendor partner. The question you should ask them is, okay, outside of like, tell me why these metrics are the ones that are important to me and are important to you, and why do we share these? Because how do these relate to my bottom line? So, you know, impression share is great, but I can have a great impression share and not sell any cars, and vice versa, right? So I think just taking a step back and really questioning why these KPIs and why these metrics is a good place to start, no matter what industry you're in, whether it's auto or anything else. Right. Because the metrics that you measure should have some direct correlation to what's important to you. And as a dealer, that's sales. So how does impression share relate to sales? How does click-through rate relate to sales? It's a lot easier to make the connection between how do QSP volume or cost per QSP or even cost per lead, how does that relate to sales? Because I know that if I can achieve a specific cost per lead or conversion rate, I'll get an appropriate volume, and then I look at my close rate as a dealership, and I can ballpark kind of how much I can net in sales from my digital advertising expenditure. So I think extending the funnel of digital advertising from not just have it end when the lead gets created, but have it extend all the way through to the sale happening, or, you know, or losing the sale, right? Whatever you're tracking, right? If you can track them all the way through to say, this was not just a prospect, this was a quality sales prospect, and then these are the QSPs that we actually ended up closing. Right. That's the really powerful thing. I mean, frankly, it's not always easy to do. I mean, that's why there's a huge industry for marketing attribution. And there still is. There's new tools, I feel like, coming out every day, because it's a challenging thing to do without a lot of coordination. So definitely something I would say, as a dealer, ask the question about why is this metric important, but then rely on your vendor partner to help you figure out how to actually track those things.
Yeah, I think the important thing, you know, why is always great. So first of all, if you don't ask, you'll never get. So ask why. And I could not agree with you more with that statement, with that sentiment. The other thing, you know, in terms of dealers, you need to sometimes press your vendor partners. I really want to make this important. And it's not to say that your vendor partners aren't doing what they say they're doing, but if you ask them and they can't provide you with that answer, well, yikes. You know, I would say you either need to figure it out for me, or you should start reevaluating, you know, who you're using for your vendor partners, because it's true. A lot of them do focus on these vanity metrics, as you'd mentioned, like the impression share and impressions in general and so on and so forth, but really want to align yourself with someone who, you know, you can trust as the dealer community to really help you out. Because it's true, a lot of dealers are, you know, spread thin. They don't have the proper personnel to handle this. It's usually an internet BDC manager or a general sales manager who they already have their own jobs, right? Their jobs are to get people into the door and sell cars. They are not digital marketing experts, so on and so forth. So I think that's very interesting. The other thing that you had mentioned, which I have my picture I drew here, but this is just something I thought up. So essentially, we all know sales funnels, right? I mean, that's something you had mentioned, is this funnel. But, you know, do dealers realize that they should probably have a marketing funnel as well? And essentially, like you said, where let's say someone's, you know, top of the funnel, so brand awareness, then you move down to the consideration, then you move down to, you know, decision stage, and then you move down to a final sale. You know, really, for the marketing side of things, you should be able to track all of that. And the technology is definitely out there for dealers to do that. But like you said, the quality sales prospect, you'd literally be able to follow from the top of the funnel all the way down to their conversion, and then eliminate the noise, eliminate whether or not that person's a sales or service or parts prospect in general. So I think that's really, really important for dealers to look into. Now, if dealers don't have these vendor partners in place, which I'm sure a majority of them do, yet maybe they're a little savvy, they use Google Analytics and things like that, is there a way to track a quality sales prospect utilizing Google Analytics? Is that something that dealers can do?
It's challenging because what you're missing out on is the actual analysis. Mm-hmm. So if you have a way to say these are the prospects that we have identified that are QSPs, like we can import the QSP data into Google Analytics for our clients, so that if they want to pull that in as a goal, we can import that QSP data, so they can see in GA by whatever data view they're looking at. They can pull in, QSPs as a secondary dimension. But without that type of analysis, it's a little more challenging. I'd say that, the basic goals you want to set up are, you can set up goals for like pages per sessions, time on site, kind of hitting it's usually an arbitrary kind of number of like, well, we think it's valuable if somebody visits 3 pages or more per session. So we want to track what traffic sources are sending us traffic that consistently does that. Those types of things are valuable. You can set up like destination goals are good goals too. So if you have a thank you page or something on a form fill, you can set up a destination goal that basically tracks how many times that page was loaded, which gives you a sense of how many times that form is filled out. It can be a little more challenging with dealership websites though, because a lot of these things might be happening, dynamically in page. Mm-hmm. So you're going to probably have to work with your website provider to figure out the right hooks for events and things. So I hate to say that the answer is like reach out to your providers, but I think that you can do it yourself. It's just going to take you a lot more. It's just going to take you a little bit more research and kind of trial and error. And you want to ensure that when you do set something up, if you're going to make business decisions based off of it, you want to make sure that it's accurate. Right. So that initial kind of setup is going to be important, but there are definitely things that you can look at, even without goals, just to kind of understand where's your traffic coming from. One good thing that I like to look at is if you can track, even if you can't track QSPs, if you can just track like lead actions and prospects, and you can get a volume number by channel. So you say paid search gave me this many prospects, Facebook gave me this many, then you can go into Google Analytics and you can look at the percentage of traffic that source represents should be at least 1-to-1 with the percentage of conversions that come from that source. So that's a really good, like, simple benchmark that you can use, where if paid search is driving you 20% of your overall website traffic, you would hope that it drives you at least 20% of your overall conversions. If that number is out of whack, where you're driving 40% of the traffic but 10% of the conversions, that probably means that you're not being efficient with your spend. But on the other side of that, if you're driving 10% of the traffic but 40% of the conversions, paid search is working for you real well, and put more, and that tells you I should probably be investing a little bit more there, because it's basically punching above its weight class. Mm-hmm. So those are some simple things that you can do that don't involve like setting up goals. Right. But I think that Google Analytics is a great starting point. And if you're not looking at anything like this, get into GA, look at just some of the reports that break down traffic sources. Right. Source medium reports are good places to start. And that'll just give you some awareness of, maybe you're not even aware of all the places that are driving traffic to your website. And if you can start there, and then you start to work your way out to, okay, now I want to track an engagement goal like pages per session or time on site, then you start adding those things, and then you slowly start to build kind of the KPIs that you look at. But again, ask yourself the question that you would ask a vendor: why am I creating this goal to track this metric? Is this important to something down the line that's really valuable to my bottom line? Because if not, and it's just a metric to track for the sake of tracking the metric, you maybe want to question is this something that I want to put a lot of stock into when making decisions?
Right. Yeah, so I think, with Google Analytics too, I mean, I agree with your statement once again that yes, it's a starting point, but I do think the tool for being a free tool for dealers is absolutely a tool that dealers need to basically learn and familiarize themselves with. We always hear this in the marketing world, and I'm sure Matt knows this as well, but if you want to win the world of Google, right, it's like you got to play on Google's field, right? Or you want to win the game of Google, you got to play on Google's field. And now some people might be going, oh, really? Like we have to do that? But, in terms of Google Analytics, there is so much insight you can glean. And for those listening, I will give you just a couple of my favorite reports that I look at because I think they do help us identify that higher quality traffic. So a couple of those, and I'll just rattle them off, and then maybe we can go more in depth at a later episode or in a description, whatever it is. But really a new one, which is in beta testing still, is, and I don't know if you gentlemen have heard of it, but the cohort analysis is a personal favorite of mine. Another one that I absolutely love, just looking at the actual Google events, right? So like you said, isolating them out to specific traffic sources, but seeing what events, right? So these are actually tracked by Google. You'd be able to see if someone clicked on specific VDP views or SRPs, search results pages, clicked on a slideshow, clicked on a click to call, click to chat without having the goal set up. You could actually look at the events. That does include, pages per session. That includes time on page, so on and so forth. And then the last one is actually that, isolating out the actual time on page. And this one I learned very recently because when you look at specific traffic sources, let's just say you looked at your overview report and it pulls in the specific source, time on site, and then a bounce rate and goal completions and so on and so forth. The time on site, and this is fascinating because like I said, literally just learned this. The time on site is only really taking into consideration the person getting to that one landing page or location and then exiting that if they were included as a bounce. But believe it or not, it's not the actual time on the specific page. So these people, I mean, you could be sending them to your site and you paying money for those people to get to your site. And if you don't dig in further and you're just saying, oh my goodness, this Facebook campaign they're only spending an average of 35 seconds or 45 seconds on my site. You'd be surprised if you actually boiled it down or dug deeper. You could see that some of those page views or the time on page is like 6, 7, 8 minutes a page, which means people are really engaging on there. So I think that does show you a better idea of these QSPs. And so it absolutely is a very, very important tool. How about you over there, Mr. Matt Wilson? I mean, do you guys preach Google Analytics at Silverback? How does that, work in your world?
You're getting very worked up there. I was enjoying it. I was like, wow, he really is passionate about this topic. Holy cow, his voice is getting higher. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the main takeaway for me, with Silverback Advertising Agency that I'm at, is attribution, right? And Colin and I, you and I have had plenty of talks about this off the air about it. And dealers are, okay. So we love Google Analytics. We have our own dashboard called the Fuel Gauge that measures conversions and whatnot. And then our OTT platform, it's all about attribution. And we talk the same thing that Naveen is talking about is vanity metrics. And I always tell the story where, I used to buy OTT from my cable company at my last group. And then we get the report at the end of the month. And I've told you this story, Colin, and here's your OTT and here's your impressions and here's your view through rate. And it's like, okay, great. But where's the clicks? Where's the calls? Where's the form fills? Where's the credit apps? Where's the footfall traffic? And any way that you can provide that information to dealers as close as you can get to saying, doing this sold you this is what you need to look for as a dealer. I had not heard of QSPs before this. So when Colin sent me this episode, you know me, I was like, I'm going to learn something.
So
that's a great point. I think connecting the online to the offline is a challenge that every big player out there has tried to do. Google's done it in a big way with store, like the store visits metric. And I know that they put a lot of weight there, but this is kind of our version of the store visit, right? Of, hey, we don't need to. So part of Foureyes too is Foureyes connects to the dealer CRM. So the other side of it is that there's all this that happens with, okay, well, we can do the marketing attribution, but on top of that, we can also tell you when somebody's been back to your website. So that's the sales enablement part of it of, hey, we can see the salesperson that's assigned to this prospect, and we saw that this prospect from your CRM is back on the website 30 minutes ago. That salesperson gets a text or an email saying, hey, you should call this person now. And here's what they looked at, and here's what they're shopping, and here's everything they've searched for on the search tool on your website. So there's lots of information out there, and I think that essentially what we're trying to do is just it encapsulates sales enablement and marketing attribution, because we just want to track everything that happens on the website, because there's some valuable way to use that information. And I think the platform grows because every day, week, month, we think of, whoa, here's another application of this data that we never thought of before. Right. And so, but yeah, I think connecting the offline to the online has been a big challenge. And I think QSPs are something that's between a lead action and a store visit, right? Like this isn't necessarily somebody who came to the store, but this is somebody who's thinking about it for real, and who's really, truly showing, sales intent.
Yeah, so you want to be in front of them. I just made my notes here, and it was originally the 5 W's, but then I realized that there's one, it's an H. So who, what, where, when, why, and how. Who, what, where, when, why, how, right? There you go. All the questions I think you really ask yourself as a marketer and as a dealer who's spending money with some vendor partners, ask them those questions. Who am I marketing to? What am I marketing to them? Why am I marketing to them? When are they getting that message? And how are we disseminating this out, out into the ether? So I think that that's really, really important, especially as dealers move forward in 2021, which will be here before you know it. But attribution is definitely going to be something that will probably be, it kind of already is, but I think it's going to be one of your buzzwords, just like digital retailing was and still is. But attribution. So that's really cool. We'll finalize here with a couple thoughts. I think for dealers listening, and not that I'm biased, I do utilize Foureyes at our dealerships. We do have them with their, I believe now, it's not the sales enablement, but prospect engagement tool, which, for us, and I will say why I think it's really important for dealers to sign up with it. This is, Naveen doesn't know I'm talking about this, but the fact of the matter is, for us, the way we use it is like this, or the way the emails work is like this. So someone goes onto our website, right? Let's say we drove them there with some sort of paid search traffic or paid traffic in general. They go on, they fill out a lead form, they fill out a chat. There's some sort of tangible information that we get from these individuals. What prospect engagement does for us is sending dynamic emails to these individuals. And by dynamic emails, I mean the specific make, model, vehicle that this person's looking at or submitted a lead on will now be recommended to them with suggested other vehicles. There's also price drop alerts and notifications, and there also is if that vehicle's sold, out of stock, here's a similar vehicle. The reason why I wanted to bring that up, though, is I think with QSPs, when dealers look at it and they're boiling it down to, okay, I want to focus on getting these quality sales prospects. Getting the quality sales prospect starts with quality marketing. And the quality marketing comes from what I like to call hyper-personalization. And so gone are the days, or gone should be the days, of a dealer doing this, spray and pray, where they're sending out, mass email blasts or, sending out, just untargeted messaging, hoping that someone's going to click on it. Yes, there still is some value to that in a holistic picture if you're looking at it. I mean, maybe someone hasn't specified a specific make or model of vehicle. They've just been on your website and you have their information, but you don't know whether they want a Jeep Grand Cherokee or Jeep Compass or something like that. So you're just going to send them a Jeep email blast and see, what happens. But, with that, people that have raised their hands, that have said, I want a Jeep Cherokee or Jeep Grand Cherokee, submitted a lead on it. And as you follow up with them, for them to see suggested vehicles, price drop alerts, so on and so forth, I think that that's very, very powerful. I mean, Matt, I know you guys with your Data Fusion, which is your OTT product, as well as the other solutions that you guys offer at Silverback, I know personalization is something that you guys take very seriously. So I know you guys agree with that. I mean, that's what marketing is, right? It's about personalizing the message.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the person wants to be connected with on a one-on-one, level. And yeah, you're completely right, for sure.
Yeah. So I think that's the big thing here is the QSP begins at that one-on-one. I'm going to call it QM, which is quality marketing. Sound is nice. But yeah, no, I think that's very, very important. And now with that, Naveen, so Adpearance, Foureyes, is there, where can people go if they want to learn more about Adpearance and Foureyes?
Yeah, they can reach out to us, directly. They can go to adpearance.com. They can go to foureyes.io, and check out what we have to offer. They can reach out to me directly. My email is basically just my first last name at adpearance.com. And I think that there's, I think you mentioned prospect engagement. There's opportunities to try that platform, for 60 days and no charge, and then see the results. So we really want to put our money where our mouth is in terms of, proving that quality outreach and targeting people who are QSPs is how you're going to do effective marketing as a dealership. So good opportunity there. And then on the Adpearance side, we've obviously been in the space for a long time, and we're in a decent amount of certified programs. So yeah, you can reach out to me directly. You can check out our websites, and we'd love to connect with people.
Yeah, no, I know you like to connect with people. I know that you like to find them those quality sales prospects in their market. So Naveen, we really appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much for explaining what a QSP is. We know you're down with QSP. I hope that everyone else now is going to get down with QSPs and ask the right questions. And, those questions before we let you go, just basically, why am I, going after these people? What is this getting me? And then ultimately, how can we track this, right? So that's the beauty of it. But all the technology's out there, and dealers just need to speak up. They need to ask. And if their vendor partners can't provide them with those answers, well, dealers, it's an opportunity to find someone else who can. All right? Thanks, Naveen.
Thanks,
care,
guys.
Very much.
Thanks, Naveen.
Matt,
yes, sir.
Learn something about QSPs today?
I love days when I get to learn something. And I went into this one, like I said, I saw, when you and I our little pre-meeting about what's going on, and I'm like, nope, don't tell me. I don't know. I want to learn. So I certainly did. I hope all the dealers and vendors listening too found it informational, educational, whatever the word is.
If it's not in Merriam-Webster's dictionary yet, maybe QSP in a couple months will be there, just because we do think, Matt and I both believe that there is a tremendous amount of importance behind actually finding the quality sales prospect, right? I mean, it's like the needle in the haystack. I mean, essentially, instead of the needle in the haystack, we just want to give you a lot of needles.
Yeah. Traffic doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
I tell you what. Does our industry like acronyms more than any other industry? Everything's an acronym in automotive.
I think so. Yeah. BDC. What else? F&I.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's definitely a lot.
And then you get DOMs and FOMs and regional VPs, and it's crazy. I love it.
Everyone's title. So with that, guys, we appreciate you all for listening and tuning in, whether you're watching this at a later date, listening at a later date. We really appreciate it. Last housekeeping items for us. Please do not forget to like and follow us on Facebook. You can find Matt on his Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson podcast. Just type that right in. Yep. For me, Experimarketing podcast on Facebook, and then also on YouTube. Do not forget to subscribe. We greatly appreciate it, so you can stay up to date on all things Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson and all things Experimarketing. And finally, that's okay, you can roll it out. And finally, connect on LinkedIn. We always want to have new dialogues, new connections, and new conversations. Thank you very much, everyone. That's Experimarketing, episode 7, down with QSPs. We'll see you next time.